In the quiet darkness of a suburban home, nestled in the heart of a quaint neighborhood, there lived a family of four. John and Sarah, the loving parents, had two young children, Emily and Tommy. Little did they know, their peaceful lives were about to be shattered by an unseen terror lurking just beneath their beds. It began innocuously enough. Emily, a precocious 7-year-old, started complaining of strange noises coming from under her bed at night. "Mommy, Daddy," she whispered one night, her voice trembling. "There's something under my bed. I hear it breathing." John and Sarah exchanged concerned glances but reassured Emily with gentle smiles and hugs. "It's just your imagination, sweetie," Sarah cooed, tucking her daughter back into bed and kissing her forehead. "There's nothing under there but dust bunnies." But Emily wasn't convinced. Night after night, the noises persisted, soft whispers, scraping sounds, and the occasional thump. Each morning, she'd emerge from her room looking pale and tired, her eyes haunted by unseen terrors. One fateful night, as the clock struck midnight, Emily awoke to find a pair of glowing eyes staring at her from beneath the bed. Frozen in terror, she could only watch as a twisted, gnarled hand reached out from the darkness, its fingers curling toward her like claws. "Mommy! Daddy!" she screamed, the fear gripping her throat. John and Sarah burst into the room, their hearts racing as they searched frantically for the source of their daughter's terror. But the room was empty, save for Emily shaking violently in her bed. As days turned into weeks, the creature's presence grew bolder. Tommy, Emily's younger brother, began hearing the whispers too. "It wants us," he confided in Emily one afternoon, his voice barely a whisper. "It told me it wants to kill everyone." Terrified, the children tried to warn their parents, but John and Sarah dismissed their fears as childish nightmares. That is, until one stormy night when the creature finally revealed itself in all its horror. John awoke to the sound of shuffling footsteps in the hallway. Heart pounding, he grabbed a flashlight and cautiously made his way toward the children's room. The door creaked open, revealing a scene straight from a nightmare. Emily and Tommy huddled together in the corner, tears streaming down their faces, while a dark, shadowy figure loomed over them. With a guttural growl, the creature turned toward John, its eyes blazing with malice. It was a monstrous being, with twisted limbs and a grotesque face contorted into a malevolent grin. John's mind reeled in disbelief as he struggled to comprehend the horror before him. Without hesitation, John lunged forward, wielding the flashlight like a weapon. The creature let out a blood-curdling scream as the light pierced its dark form, causing it to dissipate into a cloud of inky shadows. Gasping for breath, John gathered his trembling children into his arms, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. But the nightmare was far from over. In the days that followed, the family lived in constant fear, never knowing when the creature might return. They sought help from experts and tried every ritual and blessing they could find, but nothing seemed to banish the malevolent spirit for good. To this day, John and Sarah keep a vigil by their children's bedsides, armed with flashlights and prayers, hoping against hope that the creature under the bed will never return to wreak havoc on their lives once more. And as for Emily and Tommy, they know all too well that some monsters aren't confined to fairy tales. They dwell in the darkest corners of our imagination, waiting to strike when we least expect it. Months passed without incident, and the family began to tentatively believe that perhaps their ordeal was over. Emily and Tommy slowly regained their youthful exuberance, their laughter echoing through the halls once more. John and Sarah, though scarred by the memory of that dreadful night, found solace in the semblance of normalcy returning to their lives. Yet, beneath the fragile veneer of their newfound peace, a lingering unease persisted. John started to notice subtle changes in the atmosphere of their home. Flickering lights, cold drafts that seemed to defy logic, and an oppressive heaviness that settled in the air after nightfall. It was as if the very walls held their breath, waiting for something sinister to unfold. One chilly autumn evening, as Sarah tucked Tommy into bed, she noticed a familiar tremor in his voice. "Mommy," he whispered, eyes wide with fear. "I think I hear it again. The whispers." Sarah's heart sank. She exchanged a worried glance with John, who had rushed into the room at the sound of Tommy's distress. They had hoped against hope that their children would be spared from further torment. Yet the signs were unmistakable. The creature had returned. Determined not to let fear consume them, John and Sarah doubled their efforts to protect their family. They consulted experts in the occult, searched through ancient texts for answers, and even sought out spiritual guidance from every avenue they could think of. But the entity proved elusive, slipping through their fingers like smoke in the wind. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the household grew palpable. Sleepless nights became the norm as the family kept vigil, listening intently for any sign of the creature's malevolent presence. Each creak of the floorboards, each rustle of the curtains, sent shivers down their spines, reminding them that their nightmare was far from over. Then, one stormy night, the creature made its presence known once more. It started with a faint scratching sound, barely audible over the howling wind outside. Emily, who had grown accustomed to the ominous signs, sat up in bed with a sense of dread tightening her chest. She nudged Tommy awake, and together they strained their ears, listening as the noise grew louder and more insistent. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The lights flickered and died, leaving the children huddled together in a pool of inky blackness. Emily's heart raced as she felt a cold breath against her neck, followed by the unmistakable sensation of gnarled fingers brushing against her ankle. With a cry of terror, Emily reached for the flashlight they had kept by the bedside, her hands trembling as she aimed its beam into the darkness. The creature recoiled, its form wavering as if struggling to maintain its grip on reality. John and Sarah burst into the room, their faces etched with fear and determination. Armed with makeshift weapons and hearts filled with courage, the family confronted the creature head-on. They shouted prayers and incantations, their voices rising above the creature's unearthly shrieks. The room seemed to vibrate with the intensity of their struggle, a battle of wills that spanned the boundary between the living and the supernatural. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature vanished, a wisp of smoke dissipating into the ether. Exhausted but triumphant, John and Sarah collapsed to their knees, their children enveloped in their arms. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow through the window, the family gathered in solemn silence. They knew that the ordeal had changed them forever, leaving scars that would never fully heal. But they also knew that they had faced their darkest fears together and emerged stronger for it. The creature under the bed had been banished once more, its malevolent presence driven back into the shadows where it belonged. And though the memory of those harrowing nights would linger like a ghost in their minds, John, Sarah, Emily, and Tommy would face the future with a newfound courage, knowing that their love for each other was a light that could pierce even the deepest darkness. Weeks turned into months, and the family tried to move on from the horrors they had endured. They sought out every possible avenue for protection, from blessings to charms, and even considered moving houses. But no matter what they did, the lingering fear of the creature's return hung over them like a dark cloud. Emily and Tommy struggled to sleep through the night, their young minds haunted by the memories of glowing eyes and gnarled hands reaching from beneath their beds. John and Sarah, despite their best efforts to reassure their children, found themselves constantly on edge, listening for any sign of the creature's presence. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, a sudden chill swept through the room, causing the candles to flicker ominously. Emily's fork clattered to the table, her eyes widening in terror as a low, guttural growl echoed from somewhere unseen. Tommy whimpered, clutching Sarah's hand tightly as the room filled with an oppressive silence. John, his heart racing, stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Enough," he declared, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. "We can't keep living like this. We have to confront this creature once and for all." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "But how?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. John glanced at his family, their faces pale but resolute. "We'll find a way," he said firmly. "We'll find someone who can help us, someone who understands what we're dealing with." And so, The family embarked on a desperate quest for answers. They sought out experts in the paranormal, delved into ancient texts and folklore, and scoured the internet for any glimmer of hope. They encountered skeptics and charlatans along the way, but they persisted, driven by a fierce determination to protect their loved ones. Finally, their search led them to an elderly woman rumored to possess knowledge of the supernatural. Her small cottage nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by a labyrinth of gnarled trees and whispering leaves. She greeted them with a knowing smile, her eyes sharp and penetrating as she listened to their tale of terror. "I've heard of such creatures," she murmured, her voice as soft as the wind. "They are ancient, malevolent spirits that feed on fear and despair." John and Sarah exchanged anxious glances, their hope hanging by a thread. "Can you help us?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The woman nodded solemnly. "There is a ritual," she began, her words measured and deliberate. "It is risky, but it may banish the creature from your lives forever." With bated breath, the family listened as the woman outlined the steps of the ritual. Incantations to be spoken, symbols to be drawn, and offerings to be made. The air around them crackled with tension, the weight of their decision settling heavily upon their shoulders. Days passed as they prepared for the ritual, gathering the necessary materials and steeling themselves for the confrontation ahead. Night fell, cloaking the world in darkness as they assembled in Emily's room, the very place where their nightmare had begun. Together, they recited the incantations, their voices blending into a chorus of determination and desperation. Symbols glowed faintly in the candlelight, casting eerie shadows across the walls. The air grew thick with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing in the silence. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the room fell silent. The candles flickered and died, leaving the family standing in a circle of darkness. Emily clutched Tommy's hand tightly, her eyes wide with fear as they waited for a sign. Minutes passed like hours, the tension in the room nearly palpable. And then, a soft sigh seemed to fill the air. A whisper carried on a breeze that stirred the curtains. The oppressive heaviness lifted, replaced by a sense of peace and relief. The family exchanged hesitant glances, scarcely daring to believe that their ordeal was finally over. John took a tentative step forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "Is it gone?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The woman nodded, her eyes filled with compassion. "Yes," she said softly. "The creature has been banished. It will trouble you no more." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she embraced her children tightly, their bodies trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and overwhelming gratitude. John took her hand in his, their fingers intertwining as they stood together in the quiet stillness of Emily's room. Outside, the first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of gold and pink, a new day dawning over a family forever changed by their harrowing journey. They knew that scars would remain, both seen and unseen, but they also knew that they had faced their darkest fears and emerged victorious. As they left the woman's cottage behind, their footsteps light and hearts lifted, John glanced back one last time. The woman stood in the doorway, a solitary figure silhouetted against the morning light, her presence a testament to the enduring mysteries of the world. And so, the family returned home, their hearts lighter than they had been in months. They knew that their lives would never be the same, that they would always carry the memory of their ordeal with them. But they also knew that they had faced the darkness and emerged into the light. For sometimes, it is in the darkest of nights that we discover the strength within ourselves to overcome our deepest fears and find our way back to the warmth and safety of the dawn. In the days that followed the ritual, the atmosphere in the family's home slowly began to shift. The once oppressive tension dissipated like morning mist under the sun's gentle rays. Emily and Tommy slept peacefully through the night, their dreams no longer haunted by lurking shadows and malevolent whispers. John and Sarah found themselves gradually letting go of the constant vigilance that had consumed their lives. They laughed more freely, savored meals together without the specter of fear looming over them, and even dared to discuss plans for the future. A future no longer overshadowed by the dread of the unknown. As weeks turned into months, the wounds inflicted by their ordeal began to heal, both physically and emotionally. They grew closer as a family, united by their shared experience and newfound resilience. They no longer jumped at every creak in the floorboards or cast fearful glances under beds and into dark corners. Yet, amidst the healing, a profound sense of gratitude and caution lingered. They knew all too well that the line between safety and danger was fragile, that the boundary between the mundane and the supernatural could blur in an instant. They remained vigilant, their senses attuned to any hint of the darkness that had once threatened to consume them. One evening, as they gathered around the dinner table bathed in the warm glow of candlelight, a familiar knock echoed through the front door. John exchanged a puzzled glance with Sarah before rising to answer it. Standing on the threshold was the elderly woman who had guided them through the ritual, the woman whose wisdom and courage had helped them reclaim their lives. "I sensed that you might need some guidance," she explained softly, her eyes crinkling with warmth. "The aftermath of such encounters can be as challenging as the encounters themselves." John nodded gratefully, inviting her inside. The woman settled into a chair, her presence a soothing balm in the midst of lingering unease. They shared stories and laughter, and she offered gentle reassurances that they were not alone in their experiences, that others had faced similar trials and emerged stronger for it. As the evening drew to a close, the woman rose to leave, her weathered hands clasping Sarah's with a tenderness that spoke volumes. "Remember," she said, her voice filled with quiet conviction, "you have faced the darkness and emerged into the light. Carry that strength with you always." With a final nod of gratitude, John escorted her to the door. He watched as she disappeared into the night, a solitary figure walking beneath the stars. For a brief moment, he felt a pang of nostalgia for the fear and uncertainty that had once gripped their lives, a reminder of how far they had come and the lessons they had learned along the way. Back inside, the warmth of family and the flickering candles enveloped them once more. Emily and Tommy exchanged sleepy smiles, their eyes heavy with contentment as they prepared for bed. John and Sarah lingered in the doorway, their hearts overflowing with love and gratitude for the peace that had returned to their home. As they kissed their children goodnight and tiptoed down the hallway, the shadows seemed less menacing, the air lighter and clearer than it had been in months. They knew that their journey was far from over, that life would undoubtedly present its own challenges. But they also knew that they would face them together, fortified by the bonds of love and the resilience forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. And so, the family settled into a new rhythm of life, cherishing each moment, mindful of the fragile beauty and profound mysteries that surrounded them. They carried with them the echoes of their past, a testament to their strength and the enduring power of hope and courage in the face of darkness. For sometimes, it is in confronting our deepest fears that we discover the true depth of our humanity and the boundless strength within us to overcome even the most daunting of obstacles. And as they drifted off to sleep that night, embraced by the comforting embrace of peace and security, they knew that they had found their way back to the light. Months turned into years, and the family continued to thrive in their newfound peace. Emily and Tommy grew into resilient young adults, their childhood memories of the creature under the bed fading like distant echoes in the wind. John and Sarah, too, found solace in the everyday joys of family life, the laughter around the dinner table, the warmth of shared experiences, and the quiet moments of contentment. Their home became a sanctuary, a haven where love and courage had triumphed over fear and uncertainty. They often spoke of the lessons they had learned, the importance of resilience, the power of unity in adversity, and the enduring strength of hope even in the darkest of times. Life moved forward, filled with milestones both big and small. Emily graduated at the top of her class, her eyes shining with pride as she accepted her diploma. Tommy pursued his passion for music, composing melodies that echoed the triumphs and tribulations of their journey. John and Sarah celebrated each achievement, their hearts overflowing with pride and gratitude for the family they had fought so hard to protect. Yet, amid the joy and laughter, a shadow of caution lingered. They knew that the world was vast and unpredictable, that mysteries beyond their comprehension still lurked in the shadows. Sometimes, on quiet nights when the wind whispered through the trees, they would share a knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement of the darkness they had faced and the resilience that had carried them through. One autumn evening, as they gathered around a crackling fire in their backyard, reminiscing about the trials they had overcome, a familiar voice interrupted their conversation. "Excuse me," a young woman said tentatively, stepping into the warm glow of the firelight. John and Sarah exchanged curious glances as they invited her to join them. She introduced herself as Anna, a new neighbor who had recently moved into the house next door. There was a gentle kindness in her eyes, a familiarity that resonated deeply with them. As they chatted, Anna shared stories of her own experiences, of inexplicable phenomena and unexplained occurrences that had plagued her since childhood. Her voice trembled slightly as she described the shadows that seemed to move of their own accord, the whispers in the night that chilled her to the bone. John and Sarah listened intently, their hearts going out to Anna as she spoke. They recognized the fear and uncertainty in her voice, the same fear that had once gripped their own hearts. They exchanged knowing glances, silently communicating their shared understanding of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. "We've been through something similar," Sarah said gently, reaching out to grasp Anna's hand in reassurance. "You're not alone." Anna's eyes widened in surprise and relief, gratitude flooding her features. I didn't know where else to turn," she admitted softly. "I've tried everything, but nothing seems to work." John smiled warmly, his voice calm yet resolute. "We might have some ideas," he offered, exchanging a meaningful glance with Sarah. "There are ways to protect yourself, to reclaim your peace." And so, the firelight danced around them as they shared tales of resilience and hope, of rituals and incantations passed down through generations. They spoke of the strength that came from facing their fears head-on, of the bonds of love and unity that had carried them through the darkest of nights. As the evening drew to a close, Anna thanked them profusely, her eyes shining with newfound hope. "I don't know how to repay you," she said earnestly. John shook his head with a smile. "You don't need to," he assured her. "We're neighbors now, and neighbors look out for each other." And so, as the seasons turned and life continued to unfold, John, Sarah, Emily, Tommy, and Anna forged a bond woven from shared experiences and a deep-rooted belief in the resilience of the human spirit. Together, they navigated the mysteries of life, facing each challenge with courage and unity, knowing that they were stronger together than they could ever be alone. For in the end, it was not the darkness that defined them, but the light they found in each other. A light that shone brightly, illuminating their path through the uncertainties of the world. And as they stood together under the starlit sky, they knew that they had come full circle, embracing the lessons of their past while embracing the promise of their future, united in a bond that transcended time and space. As the years passed, John, Sarah, Emily, Tommy, and Anna became inseparable neighbors and friends, bound not just by proximity but by a shared journey through darkness and back into the light. Their bond grew stronger with each passing season, fortified by shared meals, laughter echoing through their gardens, and the quiet comfort of knowing they were there for each other. Emily pursued her dreams of becoming a scientist, her curiosity and resilience guiding her through challenging experiments and groundbreaking discoveries. Tommy's passion for music blossomed into a successful career, his melodies touching hearts around the world with their depth and emotional resonance. John and Sarah found renewed purpose in helping others who faced similar trials, offering support and guidance to those in need. They hosted gatherings where stories were shared, fears were confronted, and hope was rekindled, a beacon of light in a world that sometimes seemed shrouded in shadows. Anna, with the guidance and support of her newfound friends, discovered her own inner strength. Together, they practiced rituals of protection, surrounded themselves with symbols of positivity and strength, and learned to trust in the power of their collective resilience. Their neighborhood became a sanctuary, a place where love and courage prevailed over fear and uncertainty. They planted gardens that bloomed with vibrant colors, symbolic of the growth and healing that had taken root in their lives. They celebrated birthdays, holidays, and milestones with joy and gratitude, each moment a testament to their unwavering determination to embrace life to the fullest. Yet, They never forgot the lessons learned during their darkest hours, the importance of resilience, the power of unity, and the enduring strength found in the depths of the human spirit. They carried these lessons with them as they faced new challenges and uncertainties, knowing that together, they could overcome anything. One crisp autumn evening, as they gathered around the fire pit in John and Sarah's backyard, Emily spoke softly, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "Do you remember when we first met Anna?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with warmth as she glanced at her family and Anna. Anna smiled, her own eyes reflecting the flickering light of the fire. "I'll never forget," she replied softly. "You all welcomed me into your lives when I felt so lost and alone. I'm forever grateful." John placed a hand on Anna's shoulder, his gaze filled with fondness. "We're grateful too, Anna," he said sincerely. "You've enriched our lives in ways we never could have imagined." As they sat together beneath the starry sky, their laughter mingling with the crackling of the fire, they knew that their journey was far from over. Life would continue to present challenges and uncertainties, but they faced the future with courage and unity, a testament to the strength found in community and the enduring power of hope. And so, surrounded by love and bound by shared experiences, they embraced each moment as it came, knowing that together, they had forged a bond that could withstand any darkness and illuminate even the deepest shadows. For in the end, it was not the trials they faced that defined them, but the courage and love that bound them together, a beacon of light in a world that sometimes seemed dimmed by fear and doubt.